Hello, everyone. I'm Alana. I'm going to talk about leading through crisis today, which is definitely a topic we can all relate to. I am talking from my home office in San Francisco, and it is very early here, so I am ready with my coffee. I just want to give a real special shout out to Preet and the DesignX community first. It is amazing that we are able to come together remotely and share these experiences that bring everyone closer. And it's a sign of a true professional when they make it look this easy to go through. So, a little bit about me. I was raised by a single mom and lived with my sisters in California. I really value community. I actually ran away to Seattle to start an artist live work community in a building, physical community. It was an amazing experience. And I continue to get involved in design communities, whether it be DesignX or other leadership forums, and I mentor up and coming designers and future design leaders outside of work as well. And then, of course, I came back to San Francisco, and that's where I met my fantastic husband and my two amazing children. I call them my own children now because they are. And we love outdoor activities, surfing, camping, those types of things keep us energized. All right. So this is a theme of crisis today. And I want to talk a little bit about a personal crisis that I went through to frame the day. So I'm incredibly fortunate to have been raised by a really strong single mother and living with my two sisters as well. Now, my parents split when I was 6 years old, and my father continued to be in and out of my life as much as he could while he battled with his own crises called addiction and mental health. So after the split, though, I enjoyed a very stable life with my mother and two sisters for a long time. And then when I was 17, I got news that no one ever wants to hear that kind of struck my world. And this is this is true crisis. When I was 17, my mother found out and told us as a family that she was diagnosed with stage 4 bone cancer. And the doctor gave her 3 to 12 months to live. Now you can imagine this was devastating. I'm 17, about to graduate high school. The world's in front of me. I'm going to college. I'm going to live on my own for the first time ever. Instead, I have to process this information and think about a world that doesn't have my mom in it in the future. And it's a thought that no one wants to think about. And when this type of crisis happens to you, your time really freezes. You just stop in your tracks. Well, in the time that followed, I watched my mother take on the most epic battle with cancer I've ever seen. And 3 years later, she was laid to rest. She really taught me and my sisters during that time kind of what it looked like to go against the odds and persevere and really use positive thinking and self-empowerment to move forward. And sometimes the odds are stacked against you, and sometimes they aren't. But I also sometimes call her the most stubborn woman I've ever met, which I love. But really the truth is she had an immense amount of grit and survival skills, and she passed that on to me and my sisters, which I am forever grateful. And it really started to define who I became today and how I approached my life. And again, this crisis was forever changing me. So I'm sharing a very personal crisis story with you today because every single person out there either does or will have a story about crisis. And in this era of COVID, we all have felt a crisis. It is a real unifier. And everyone's story may be deeply personal, and it may never be shared. And this is something we don't see. So I ask you a question. How would we treat each other if we all knew someone was dealing with something really difficult under the surface? And it's during these times of struggle and tragedy that disruption and positive change can emerge and persist. It's these times that will influence how we approach looking at ourselves, our relationships, our communities, and societies. And this can be meaningful change. I know this was for me. There was a lot of growth I had to go through. And I really was fortunate to have found design and a career in design that helped me grow. Now, for me, the act of making something, whether it be art, music, writing, was a place I went to express myself and deal with a lot of the difficult feelings and events that happened in life. And I'm sure everyone can relate to that. And I was so fortunate to be able to turn that into a career later on. So making things positively impacted me when I needed it. And so now I'm able to make things for other people that positively impact them. And that's my joy of design. So just a little bit more about my career. I have 15 years in design, leading teams and work. And today I'm going to talk about my last position and my current position, in which I experienced and we experienced an immense amount of crisis. So for all you leaders out there, whether you lead teams of people or you're leading yourself through this crisis, how does it feel when someone asks you to lead through a crisis? I could tell you it's very intimidating. We want to kind of crouch down and hide, right? But we don't do that. We persevere and we stick through it. And I want to use a definition of crisis today to get us all on the same page. So it's any event or period, because it can happen once or it can last a lifetime, that leads to a dangerous situation, this feeling of unsafety. And it can in fact affect individuals, groups, or societies. And we definitely saw that with COVID. And some key characteristics of crisis here is change with little warning, and we feel like it's out of our control. I tell you, this is terrifying, right? Not what we want. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my January leading an organization through crisis. Now, this was pre-COVID. I was at Get Around. I had been building the team and helping build the company up from 80 people to then we expanded to Europe. We were growing like crazy. It was growth at all costs. And it was exciting times. Just before January, I was in Paris and Amsterdam, talking with our European teams and talking about all our plans for the future and how we were going to merge our design teams and some really, really exciting things. Now, Get Around is a peer-to-peer car sharing company, and I was really attached to that mission as well. Hey, maybe we don't need to own our cars, maybe we could share them. So much potential here, and I had so much invested over the last 3 years. Then January hit. We weren't aware of COVID yet, but it was just around the corner. And one of SoftBank, one of Get Around's major investors was SoftBank, and this was right around the time around the WeWork debacle, if you remember this. Startups were over-evaluated and things were shutting down. And well, get around and completely close the doors, we did significantly have to change course. That meant company-wide layoffs. So I always like to go to this map or framework for crisis event management. Whenever something really, whenever crisis happens, I always use a map or a framework to help me tell me where I am and help me lead my teams. So we're in a state of preparing. So the company was preparing. They had all the layoffs ready. And I think it was, they brought all the managers in. This is a situation where the managers have 10 minutes of knowledge before the rest of the company of who's leaving, who's staying. And then it happens, and it happens quick, because you don't want these things to last very long. You want them to happen very quick. So there were massive layoffs in the prepare stage, and then in the prevent stage, there was a lot of planning. How can we currently keep our employees that are there while we're laying off half of the company? So again, my focus was to make sure that my team, the team I had left, was set up for success during this time. And then the most important area of this is leaders are coming in, new leaders are coming in, old leaders are deciding whether they should stay or go. And this is a question I had to ask myself: should I stay or should I go? And really where we want to get to is recovery and monitor. And it's in this identify phase of crisis management where we make all the decisions that set us up for success when we are in a recovery stage, and then we monitor it and make updates as we go, feedback and observation. So every leader had to ask themselves, should they stay, should they go? And I tell you, every leader that stays has a long road ahead of them. You need the stamina, you need the energy. And for some, it was worth staying. And for me, I decided after 3 years, I was ready for a new challenge. So I set my team up for success, and I said goodbye in February. Then my last day was March 13th, and that's when COVID was announced globally and in the US. And then we had shutdown orders soon after that, or stay-at-home orders. And then February through May was a period of searching for a job during COVID, which was a very stressful time. But I'm so happy that I landed at Amazon leading the design team at Goodreads. Now, I had the good fortune of choosing where I wanted to go when we were in a time of crisis. And in a time of crisis, your priorities sometimes change. What kind of leaders are you looking for? What kind of company are you looking for? And who do you want to support? And reading is a passion of mine, and this was a perfect match. Now, I will tell you, this was the state of the world right now. Everyone can relate to this. And in the US, leadership changes, incredible tensions, and it just felt like everywhere you looked, there was a new change, a new crisis. So I anchored down, joined Goodreads, and joined my new team. And I said, hey, I've been through crisis before. And I've led teams before. Well, I've never led teams remotely through crisis. Maybe I just need to hone in on my remote skills. How do I do this remotely? So I had high hopes. This is my team, and some of them are protected for their privacy here. Everyone can relate to this. You're joining your team. You're trying to connect with your team, and you're hoping that you can see them, talk to them face to face. Well, technology doesn't always cooperate. And oftentimes this is what happened, where there was no connection. I couldn't see my team in meetings. It was chaos, right? And so I went back to my map, crisis management, and I kind of layered on like what we did for COVID, right? So we prepared with shelter in place, we prevented by wearing masks, and we're at this precipice right now where we're still identifying what needs to change so that we can get to a phase of recovery and monitoring where we want to be. This is a phase where there's less change and there's less unknowns. And so I quickly anchored onto this. What needs to change? Is it that I need to hone in on my remote work skills? How do I bring the team together? And what I quickly realized is that this really is not remote work. That I was looking at remote skills and trying to fill those gaps that I had. That's not the real problem. The real problem is that we're all working remotely under extreme stress, and it's different for everyone. While COVID united us, we all knew we were all going through it. It affected different people, different groups of people very differently. And if you could imagine, if you already had stress and triggers in your life, the compounding effect of COVID for some people was unbearable. And this has affected our teams and my team as well. So I'll go through what didn't work. As I said before, my approach of doing what I did before, just remotely. And as leaders, I think we really need to simplify things. As people, we need to simplify things. When things are really complex, it's hard to manage. And so I was not doing my team or myself a service by just honing in on my remote working skills. What did work is providing clear expectations with my team and creating greater flexibility with them. And an example of this is that I created team agreements. These were all the things and activities that my team wanted to do and we agreed on as a team. And it kind of went in this is what we do daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. And we revisit these team agreements every quarter. Make sure everyone's aware of them, wants to participate in them. We have owners for them. It works out. So the flexibility part is really not only documenting expectations, but talking about them, repeating them, and then retroing them or reviewing them. That really helped with the team's expectation setting. The second thing that didn't work, and I am a self-proclaimed workaholic because I just love what I do, is overworking. And I think we could all agree that we had less boundaries, and we could sit at our desks for a while longer and just keep working. There was so much to do. And I fell victim of this as well. And the problem here is that while it's great that you're producing, you're moving things forward for the company, you're also at the same time exhausting yourself and exhausting your impact, and perhaps sending the wrong message to your team. And so what really does work is setting healthy boundaries. And this is challenging, but some of the things that I did that worked for me is that I set calendar blocks. Having back-to-back meetings is exhausting, as everyone can attest to. We also, sometimes I don't have my video on. Sometimes you just need to take a call from the couch or from outside, and you need a break from the video. And then the third thing is that we have, at Goodreads, we have no meeting Wednesdays. And this is an incredible effect on company morale and on my employees. And we protect it, and we actually don't have meetings on Wednesdays. It's fantastic. The third thing that really didn't work, and this is hard for me, is not asking for help. And I will tell you, this is the single most brave thing that anyone can do. And it's a journey to self-awareness. As leaders, of ourselves and of other people, we have to make decisions constantly. And on top of that, we may be dealing with extra stressors. And, and it's okay to ask for help. So I like to say, this is my couch slide, find a friend, find a mentor, find a coach, and talk through things, practice things, and just take a break sometimes. That's something we can all give ourselves. And lastly, building connections. So these are some of the things that we did on my team. Now we're a book-centric design team, so we created book clubs, voted on books to read, and then had discussion chat groups. I leaned into the virtual experiences with my team, and we traveled to Buenos Aires to learn more about artwork from that area. And then my favorite activity is having everyone go into a collaboration software like Miro, or in this case, Freehand. Also, FigJam's great. And asking everyone to draw me out how to make toast and then discuss it. It's so interesting how people approached it, and we got a good laugh out of it. I also learned, we're also learning about visual storytelling and how much information to give in that area. And I want to pull this quote. So I found this from Harvard Business Review because it really sums up where we are right now as we're trying to navigate through a new era of how we work and how we work with each other. It says, we used to experience disruptions followed by stable periods, but now change is increasingly perpetual and pervasive. So change is not going away, but change is really difficult. And this is the state of the world right now and the state of our industry. So I want to leave you with a very famous framework by Rumsfeld, who was a US Secretary of State. And this is a framework that talks about what we know and what we don't know in order to help us make informed decisions, calculate risk, and chart the best path forward with what we know. And I've used this in my product design career. I've used this in my leadership for different things, and I think it's important now. So there are many things that we don't know, but right now in times of crisis, we really need to ask ourselves, how can we create more knowns in our team, with expectations, with how we're going to work with each other. Maybe it's just about telling people how they're doing, giving feedback to them. This is increasingly important right now. And it's something that a lot of leaders are leaning into. And I am still thinking of different ways to create knowns for my team. Well, there are a lot of unknowns out there that everyone's dealing with in the world. So with that, I thank you. I hope I sparked some more questions as we're defining how we work together. I would love to connect with any of you, all of you. I'm on LinkedIn. Help me revive my Twitter account. And of course, I'd love to know what you're reading on Goodreads.